Well, hello and welcome to the e-commerce podcast. My name is Matt Edmundson. It's great to be with you today. Now, let me start by telling you a story of a few years ago. I had a beauty business and we did that thing that no one in e-commerce ever tells you to do. We actually turned off our ads. Yes, we did. We didn't pause them. We didn't optimize them. We didn't hand them off to a new agency. We were simply spending tens of thousands of pounds every month on paid ads. And as a company, we were having some financial issues and we needed to save a lot of money and quite quickly. So we just turned them off. And you know what? The thing that still surprises me when I look back is that the sales held. Now, they didn't hold forever, but they did hold. And we didn't fall off a sort of a cliff's edge, at least not instantly in that business, which I thought was quite extraordinary, really. The business kept moving and we saved tens of thousands of pounds every month. And the reason is because we had two things underneath us that really helped. The first was we had a high repeat purchase rate. And the second was a body of organic search rankings that we'd been quietly building over the years. And the only reason I could turn the ads off was because we had that foundation. If we didn't have that foundation, then that decision to turn them off would have pretty much killed our business pretty darn quickly, let me tell you. And that's what we're going to be looking at today, because a lot of us, I think, are running businesses where if paid ads stop today, the whole business stops. But we're probably all asking the question, should I turn them off? And let me tell you, I do wonder if paid ads are actually starting to not work like they should. What do you think? I don't know. There's a conversation that's been going on, isn't there, really? And it's what we're going to get into on this bright, cheerful, sunny day. Now, if this is your first time with us, a very, very warm welcome to you. Make sure you like and subscribe and do all of that good stuff. And of course, if you're a regular, a warm welcome back. It's great to have you. Thanks for staying with us. It's really, really great. Now, listen. Before we get started in the podcast, I have to tell you something that I almost never say on this show. There's nothing like building a little bit of drama, isn't there, really? Just me laughing at my own jokes. You might actually have to sit down for this one. Yes, drum roll. Today's episode is sponsored. Now, I know we don't normally do sponsors on the e-commerce podcast. You will know this if you've been a regular. So don't worry, you don't have to fast forward. It's nothing like that. We've just never really got into the whole sponsorship thing. We've never really tried to pursue that whole avenue as a podcast. And before any of you reach for the unsubscribe button or the fast forward button, it's not Squarespace, it's not Shopify, and it's not HelloFresh. Still laughing at my own jokes. Yes, no, the sponsor of today's episode is in fact my own company, which I know people have a pronunciation issue with. It's actually pronounced Aurion, A-U-R-I-O-N, Aurion. It's a Greek word, means tomorrow, which I thought was a good name for a tech company. Anyway, this is just me being a little bit tongue-in-cheek, announcing a brand new tool that we've built called SAM. Now, SAM stands for Slingshot AI Mentor. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about SAM, a bit more properly, at the sort of latter part of the show. What it is, how it works, and all of that sort of good stuff. But it's us basically bringing e-commerce and AI together. And so just thought I'd just announce it on the show and just be upfront, because that's how we like to do things around here. So today is sponsored by Sam. Thank you, Sam. Appreciate it. There we go. Confession over. Right, let's get on with it, shall we? Sponsored by. Anyway, so today we are going to be talking, like I said, about how to get organic traffic for e-commerce and what that looks like specifically in the year 2026. How do we build the kind of foundation for our businesses that means if we've got issues with paid media, hands up, Pretty much all hands go up at that point. How can we still carry on? Because right now, like I say, I think paid media is breaking. Interestingly, Facebook CPMs are up somewhere between 60 and 90%, which quick maths would say 75% in the last few years. Paid search clicks, you may know this already, have effectively doubled in price across every single vertical in the last year. And the organic clicks, the ones that used to balance all of this out for us, well, they're falling actually at a rate of between 11 and 23 percentage points, depending on your industry and vertical. So when you put all this together, when you look at the maths, it's actually genuinely quite frightening, isn't it? And what I see most of us doing in response to this is actually fighting harder and harder and doubling down on paid media. And so I just wonder, right, if we need to think a little bit more holistically about paid media, a bit more maybe outside of the box, which is hopefully what we're going to be getting to today. Well, I've got some ideas and some thoughts around this idea of building organic traffic. Now, it's not just as simple as saying, well, that's just all about SEO, isn't it? Organic traffic, Matt. Why don't you just do a show on SEO? Because whilst that might have been true in 2018, my friend, I think organic traffic is quite a bit more involved now. So we're going to hit in today's episodes 6 channels. Not 1, but 6. Yes. And right now, I'm guessing most of us are probably dabbling in one of them, possibly 2 of them. But this is why I think it's good to have these conversations, to expand our thinking and to think about how we could do it differently. So we're going to look at these 6 areas, 6 sources of organic traffic, and ask ourselves, what's the one thing we can do in each of these areas in the coming weeks that's going to help move the needle in our business? Because you know what? I like action. I like progress. I like simple coaching questions. And I like to see how I can improve. Now, of course, if you are a regular to the show, you will know that these sort of solo episodes where it's just me sort of rambling on, hopefully delivering value, we also deliver a freebie. And I'll tell you more about that again at the end, how you can get a hold of it, and how it's going to help you in relation to what we're talking about today. So that is also coming up. You're not going to want to miss this freebie. Let me tell you, it is involved. It's so cool. But, you know, I'm going to say that, aren't I? And none of this, by the way, is theoretical, because all of this stuff is what we're doing in my own e-commerce companies right now. You know, the one that's sponsoring the show. Oh, yes. So let's get into it, shall we? But before we jump into the 6, let me just widen out the story for a second, if I can. Because what happened to us in that beauty business is what is happening maybe in slow motion to nearly every e-commerce founder I'm speaking to right now. Okay, this is why I wanted to do this episode. I reckon probably about 80% of the folks that I've spoken to recently, and yes, this is anecdotal, I've not measured this to an nth degree. I reckon 80% of us have got some pretty big issues around paid media. 8 out of 10, right? That's not just a few outliers. That's not a handful of unlucky business people. I think it's the shape of the industry that we're in right now, which is why I thought it would be good to talk about it. And here's the thing about organic traffic. It's worth calling this out, really, because it's the kind of thing we don't always say out loud. You may have opened, I don't know, your blog dashboard this month and saw the last post was perhaps from 2024. In fact, the reason why I think this is it may have been your website I was looking at the other day, an e-commerce website. I clicked onto their blog. The last post was 3 years old. 3 years old. So, okay, brilliant. Maybe you've Googled recently how to do SEO for e-commerce in 2026. That's just me, of course, throwing key terms in there to the blog script. See what I did? Maybe you've Googled that. I don't know. Maybe that's why you're here, because I just randomly threw this term in. But I know a lot of us do sit up late at night, right? Checking our ad spend on our phones, wondering at what point all this is going to stop working for us. Been there, read the book, seen the film, got the t-shirt. Because the reality is there is a decline. And there's going to come a point, I think, where maybe paid ads, you seriously have to ask, do we need to switch it off, right? So it's a big deal. So let me tell you, I've done all of this, sat there, genuinely no shame if that's you, not at all. It doesn't mean you're doing e-commerce badly. I do think it's the shape of our industry at the moment. There was a business actually I acquired a little while back, just to show you the shape of the industry and the business at the moment. The business we got last year, a particular company had what I would call a CAC problem. Now, if you're new to e-commerce, you will quickly learn there are lots of these 3-letter acronyms, CAC being one of them, which I still find a very funny acronym because in England, CAC just means it's rubbish. If something's CAC, it's not very good. But in e-commerce, it means customer acquisition costs, which are also CAC. Again, let me laughing at my own jokes. And in this company we acquired, the CAC, the customer acquisition costs, had gone up quite a lot, right? And it had gone up a lot because the ad costs themselves had climbed. No big surprise there. But on top of that, the effectiveness of those ads had fallen. So they were experienced this double whammy where you get the rising ad costs, but then you get the fall in return on ad spend, or ROAS, which is another acronym that you'll be familiar with. And when those two things move against you at the same time, you actually have a fundamental problem on your hands. And the trouble is, this becomes a bit of a treadmill, right? A bit of a merry-go-round, a bit of a roundabout. I don't know if you've noticed it. Quite a few people, I think, are on it right now. Maybe you're one of them. I don't know. Because you've gone from Google to Facebook because Facebook was working, and then and it was cheap, beautiful. And then iOS changes happened. And Apple and Facebook seem to have fallen out. And then Facebook stops working as much and it gets more expensive. So then we go back to Google. And then, of course, Google costs go up because everyone's gone back onto Google and the auctions end up being way more competitive. And then someone else comes along years later and tells you, you probably should go onto TikTok. And the whole thing's exhausting, right? Or whatever the thing is at the moment. And one thing you can absolutely be sure of is that the marketing industry will keep inventing new and better ways with new places for you and I to spend our advertising budgets to reach the people that will buy our products. And either that audience will eventually wither and die, or the ads on that platform will get really expensive if it's good because everyone else is going to pile into that platform too. And then we're forced to think about the next big thing, praying to those in marketing to come up with a better way for me to spend money because the ads have stopped working. And it goes on and on. And you go on this kind of, what would you call it? A cheap traffic, modern day version of an e-commerce Indiana Jones. Do you know what I mean? I'm hunting. I'm the treasure hunter for the cheap, effective traffic. Who, you know, is just great, isn't he, Indiana? Why would we not want to be Indiana Jones? In fact, I have an Indiana Jones, Lego Indiana Jones model on my desk, just to remind me a little bit in life of a few things, which is great. So yes, why would we not want to do that? Now, we've gone from newspapers to radio to television to internet, search engines to social media. And of course, the question on everyone's lips right now is AI the next big thing? Is that the thing that's next in line? Is that going to take the throne for us in terms of generating traffic and where we put our ad spend? And the reality probably is yes. It seems to be that way. And of course, you can further exasperate this problem depending on the type of customer your business needs. So if you have a need to be profitable with new customer acquisition because most of your customers are one-time purchasers, you don't really get the big return rates back. The obvious one obviously being a couch or a sofa. You don't sell those once. I don't need to buy one every month, and if I do, I've got some real problems, right? So they tend to be one-time purchases. So selling those sofas or couches, you've got to make that first order count. And I think it's getting really, really hard for those kind of businesses. Now, if you're a business that's perhaps profitable by, say, order 3, well, I don't think you're off the hook, because I think historically those types of businesses have gone with this idea that those who have got the deepest pockets wins, right? How long can I go before I need to make money? AKA Amazon building its empire. But I think it also promotes a little bit of laziness, because you're going, well, I'm going to make some profit eventually. I just need to suck up, the sort of higher ad costs and try and make it work. But what was profitable, originally bought profit, well, maybe order 2 was profitable, and now it's order 3, which is going to become order 4. And these things, I think, have a real impact on our business. So, full disclosure, full caveat, full legal disclaimer, whatever language you would like me to use, I am not telling you to go and turn your ads off. Let me be very clear about that, because I don't want anyone walking away from this episode and sending me a legal letter because they've heard me say you should turn your ads off in the wrong way after telling my story and your business has gone a bit Pete Tong, right? If you're running a brand right now where first-time customer acquisition is your lifeblood, where most of your sales come from new people, not repeat people, and you turn off your ads today, you are going to notice that. You are going to feel that pretty much instantly. And so I think you have to have a plan if that's a route you're going to go down, because you will notice it in your bank account by the end of the day, if not by the end of the hour. So let me repeat. I'm not telling you to turn paid media off, but I am aware that there is this cycle we get into which says, if I turn my ads off, my sales will drop. If my sales drop, then I lose my cash flow. If I lose cash flow, I can't really run the business. And so we keep going on yet another merry-go-round. And the trouble is, our cash flow is getting less and less because the profits are getting smaller and smaller. And eventually the rising ad costs, the rising CAC on every kind of level, the squeeze, if we like, we get to a point where we either close the business or we do something like take out a Shopify loan, which we talked about a few weeks ago. And let me tell you, that episode has produced a fair few comments and conversations. So thank you for everyone that's reached out and got in touch about that. That was a couple of weeks ago. Do go and check it out. So, what do we do? What is the plan, Matt? Whilst figuring out this whole paid media thing, which we're going to be talking about this I think in more and more episodes coming up, because I think paid media is working at the moment. There is still some semblance of it working, and it really does. I don't think it's dead yet, but is it dying? Or is it going to radically change how it looks? And I think whatever the answer to that question is, the one thing I do know is we need to build the foundation of our organic traffic, because otherwise I think it's going to be a nightmare. Let's be real, it's going to be an absolute nightmare to try and build organic when paid does stop working, or there's some radical sort of rebalance in the whole thing. And so now I think is the best time, whilst you can still have the best of both worlds, because organic does take time. None of this is rocket science. It's not like this is going to be the first time you've heard it. We probably all know this. We've heard it all before. So hopefully this is just a little reminder of where to go, because I do think paid media needs a bit of a reinvention. Is it going to stop working? Like I say, I don't know. But I think to survive the upcoming apocalypse, if I can make it sound so melodramatic, I think the ones that win are the ones that have their sort of organic platform. It's just a thought in the back of my head. So with that very important caveat out of the way, let's talk about organic, what it actually is and how we do it. Let me start then by asking you a very simple question. What comes into your head when I say the word organic? What is organic traffic to you? Now, for most of us, we're going to immediately think, like I said at the start of the show, about SEO, search engine optimization. We we hear SEO, we hear organic, and we translate that word into SEO, right? It's our Google rankings. It's synonymous with that. They're synonymous with each other. Maybe your site has ranked for products. Maybe you've got a blog that's ranked. Maybe you've got a sitemap if you're feeling really fancy. And, you know, I think it was a perfectly, like I said, reasonable definition of organic traffic back in 2018. But here we are 8 years later, and I think it's going to be a little bit incomplete if we just leave it as that, okay? Because like I say, I just think there are these 6 areas. I think there's probably more, depending on how you interpret things. But I'm going to focus on what I call the big 6. And if we can focus on that, I think we're going to be all right, genuinely speaking. I really do. Now, one word of caution here, because I want to talk about AI. Obviously, I'm going to talk about AI, right? I am watching history repeat itself a little bit, and I just want to be aware of it. Having been around a little while, hopefully you can learn from my experience here. Back in 2018, what was fascinating was SEO agencies were a massive thing. Everyone needed one, and to be honest, most of them, in my experience, were a bit of a scam, over-promising and under-delivering. I don't think people were dishonest. I just think paid media is easy. You put X in, you get Y out. With SEO, it's a bit more art than science. And so what people were promising, they genuinely thought they could deliver. Whether it was actually delivered is another story. And we've been around long enough to have come across, I think I can count on one hand how many SEO agencies who genuinely earned their fee, right? So I've come across 1 or 2 of those agencies, which is not a lot in this world. And right now, the reason I mention this is because right now we're starting to see exactly the same thing happen with AI search, where agencies are popping up promising the world for $5,000 a month to get you cited by ChatGPT. So I want you to know that going into this conversation, because I'm hoping that this episode means that you don't have to go down that road, right? I think the agencies that genuinely understand AI search don't really exist in massive, large numbers right now because it's such a moving field. I don't think because AI search is not easy to understand, including the ones charging the premium fees. I just don't think it's that straightforward. So I just want to say that best guess, what area number 1 is going to be, as we're talking about today, is AI search. But best guess, I think we have some kind of clue. We have some ideas. It is going to be a moving field, right? So what I don't want you to do is go out, rush out and hire a whole bunch of agencies based on AI or any other of the things that we're talking about today, because I think a lot of this stuff you can do yourself, right? Matt's not saying you need an agency, okay? That's my other caveat over. I don't want you to waste your money. Genuinely, I really don't. I've seen a lot of people waste a lot of money on these things, a big fat waste of money in many occasions. That said, there are obviously some genuinely good agencies out there, I have no doubt. But this is going to be something to watch, okay? So let's get into them. The 6 areas. Let me name them quickly, and then we're going to get into each one in a bit more detail. The first one, like I said, no surprise, is going to be AI. AI search, AI, well, we call it AI discovery, which is being recommended by the likes of ChatGPT or Claude or Perplexity or Google's AI overviews. They seem to be the main ones, don't they, that people are using. And so that's the first, AI discovery. The second area is what I would call site SEO or technical SEO, which is the classic on-page stuff most of us think about when we hear the phrase SEO. So title tags, meta descriptions, schema, all of those kinds of things, really. So SEO is still important. It's one of the areas. The third area, I have cheated. I don't know. You tell me if I've cheated a little bit. In my head, I like to separate them. I've separated out what I call blog and content. which I get is a form of SEO, but it is based more around content. Site SEO I see as more technical. Blog and content is more about discovery SEO. It's the long form trust layer, if you like. And the reason why this is important now, not just from the organic SEO point of view, as in being ranked on Google, but we can see that this type of content is starting to fuel AI discovery, right? So AI is trusting this type of content for its citations, which I think is really, really interesting. Area number 4 we're going to get into is YouTube. Now, I mentioned YouTube because YouTube is still the second biggest search engine on the planet, and it's getting bigger and bigger for e-commerce. And again, YouTube is feeding a lot of AI. Okay. The 5th area we're going to look at is social SEO, because I think social is changing, and because Gen Z or Gen Z, depending on how you want me to pronounce it, are now searching inside the likes of Instagram and TikTok, and they are doing that long before they ever even touch Google. So it is an area of search that we need to think about. And then the final area, the 6th one, is what we call digital PR, which are things like press mentions, podcast appearances, founder authority, the kind of signals that build trust in your brand as a sort of an online entity. And we're going to talk about why that's important in just a second. Okay, so let's jump into the first one, shall we? On each of these, I'm going to give you my thoughts. I'm going to give you some suggested actions on what you can do, all of which will be covered in much more detail in this week's freebie, which you are definitely going to want to get. ecommercepodcast.net/resources. Go and grab it. There's some great workbook checklists in there just to follow, some prompts you can use in AI to help you. Okay, because this is what the stuff that we're giving you, full disclosure, is what we're using right now in our company. Okay, I just literally copied and pasted it. So hey ho. So like I said, area number 1, let's get into AI search engine optimization. There are, of course, all kinds of names for this, aren't there? And I don't think anyone's surprised by me mentioning AI. It is the new battlefield. It is quickly becoming the topic of conversation. We are all talking about it. You could argue it's still pretty small in traffic, but it is starting to make some waves, especially when you think about the fact it didn't exist 3 years ago and hardly really existed a year ago, but is becoming a bigger and bigger deal. Now, AI discovery is, like I say, it's basically the question of whether ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, or Google's AI overviews will recommend you when a customer asks something like, what's the best chocolate bar I can eat to lose weight? Or what's the best gift for my dad? Because, Father's Day is coming up. Or whatever it might be for your particular business. I don't know, because more and more people, and the latest data which I've seen suggests, if I'm going to be precise, which I probably should be, that 78% of consumers have used large language models for product research at some point in the last year. Let's round it up. Let's call it an even 80. It may well be now. 80% of us are using AI for product research. That's a heck of an uptake, isn't it? If you think about it, I mean, geez, what is going on? And dig deeper, right? Because about 64% of us apparently are planning to use AI chatbots for shopping decisions this year. That's a really big number, isn't it? So this is real, it is really happening, and AI is starting to have a bit of an impact. And so I think our companies need to be visible inside of these systems rather than just going, oh, we'll wait and see. I think we have to start playing the game a little bit now. Now, this became apparent to me recently when I go back to the start of our beauty business, for example, back in 2006. I appreciate we're going back 20 years. But when we started it, we set the website live, okay? It wasn't a launch. It wasn't like we told anybody. We just literally made it live. We'd been doing a bunch of testing and we made it live. And we were like, okay, we'll come back tomorrow and we'll carry on with the testing. But when we came back tomorrow, Mrs. Smith, and that is actually her real name, had placed an order on our website. Somehow, during the night, Google had found us, indexed us, and recommended us to Mrs. Smith, who then purchased the products. Now, I appreciate that doesn't really happen anymore, does it? But it happened back then, and it's how we launched our business, and all of a sudden people were finding us. It's like we got instantly indexed. The reason I'm telling you this is because it feels a little bit like that with AI right now. I'm not going to lie, there's no predefined rules that everyone's trying to play in, a bit like back 20 years ago with Google. I mean, on Google, it's so hard, isn't it? It's getting harder and harder to get to get any kind of rank, in fact. But the other day I was speaking to a lead from one of our websites, a lead. And I'm like, how did you find out about us? I'm just really curious. And they said, oh, ChatGPT told me about you. They told me that I should come talk to you guys. And I was like, well, isn't that interesting? There are some rule books on how to get discovered by AI, but I don't think we've particularly followed them to the letter. We've been playing around on it, sure. But we've benefited, I think, from some of the stuff that we've done around optimization. But it's interesting to me that at the moment, it's still quite new, it's still quite young, and it's working for a handful of businesses, which is why I think it's really important we start to get to work on it. If you haven't done so already, the concrete action for you is actually to seriously think about AI discovery and what you can do about it. And there are 3 things which you could probably do straight away that won't take a great deal of time, actually. All of them are in the workbook. Number 1 is to put a file on your website called llms.text or .txt, llms.txt. Put that as a file. So TXT is a text file, and you put that in the root of your website. Now, if you're familiar with some of these root files, you'll probably recognize something like robots.txt, which is where SEO crawlers go to look for instructions on how to access your site. Well, AI crawlers are now looking for llms.text. I really have to think about how I say that, llms.txt. We could have really made it straightforward and more simple. Large language models.txt. We have one on the site, actually. I even have one of those files on the website I use for Ecommerce Podcast, ecommercepodcast.net. You can go and look at the llms.txt file on the website, okay? It really isn't easy to say, is it? So what this does is it helps AI understand how to index our sites properly. It's really just a small text file, and it tells AI what our site is about and what's worth referencing. Now, full disclosure, full transparency. Like I said, the whole thing is new. It's all an emerging area. llms.txt files are still pretty early. Less than 10% of sites have implemented one at the moment, and no major AI provider has really officially commented to using them yet, at least not that I'm aware of. But everyone knows that they're there, and everyone knows that people are starting to use them. And the truth is, it costs you virtually nothing to add them. So I don't think you lose out by having one. And at some point, there's going to be some kind of common protocol. There always is in these things. And I think if the site's already using these files, the llms.text, I'm getting much quicker at that, aren't I? Then I think AI will start to pick them out. So my advice is just add it. Like I say, it's not going to take a whole great deal of time. Add the llms.txt file to your root folder on your website. And again, a bit more information about that in the freebie. Number 2, make sure you've got full product schema on your product pages. So what do I mean by schema? Well, schema are the invisible tags in your page code. So the code which drives your page, there's these invisible tags that tell Google and AI what the page is actually about. The reason I say they're invisible, they're there in the code, obviously, but they don't render onto your web page. So and we put some again in the workbook, but for example, schema tags like product, this is a product, not complicated, is it? A tag offer, here's the price, here's the stock status, There's a tag called aggregate rating, which is what people scored in their reviews. There's something called merchant return policy. So AI knows you actually have got a returns policy. All the important bits of information, you can add these things to your website relatively quickly and relatively painlessly using schema. You can even populate the brand name. You can add GTINs. GTIN is basically the barcode number. And so it's the unique ID code that Google uses to verify your product is in fact a real product and not just words on a page. The interesting thing here, and why you want to do this, okay, pay attention, is Google's own data says complete product schema gets about 30% more click-through than the same listing without it. You can increase your click-through rates by 30% just by adding full product schema to your website, which in my view is a heck of a jump. It's unbelievable, really, isn't it? And rich results, well, let me just say that the overall lift on click-through rates, or CTRs, if you like your three-letter acronyms, which is the percentage of people who see your listing and click, right? The overall lifting, somewhere between 20 and 40%. So this stuff genuinely does move the needle. Now, if any of this is starting to feel a little bit confusing, I will encourage you to keep listening. Do stay listening. I'm not going to get massively technical on these things, but we're going to explain more about all of these things in the freebie. Okay, there's going to be some help with that because I get that if you're driving, if you're walking the dog, some of these things you'll be like, I need to focus. What is going on here? Go get the freebie, which I'll tell you how to get towards the end of the show. And I'm telling you that just to tease you so you keep listening to the end. Reality of it is you can just go to the show description and click the link if you can't be bothered to wait. So appreciate I've just shot myself in the foot, broken all the rules, but there you go. Anyway, don't be put off by the technical thing is my advice. So the LLMS.text. Number 2 is full product schema. Number 3 is simply this: keep your content fresh. I think this is one of the most under-talked about aspects of trying to be discovered by AI. Now, what do I mean? ChatGPT, for example, pulls about 3/4 of its most cited pages from content updated in the last 30 days. 3/4. If you can imagine it, 3/4 of its content, of AI's content from web pages is updated in the last 30 days. So if everything on your site is 2 years old, are you becoming invisible to AI? It's a really interesting question. I mean, AI likes fresh stuff. That's the thing that we can take from this. It's not that the internet's disappeared, but the part of it that AI looks at, well, it seems AI's got a really short memory, hasn't it? And so it's got, well, maybe it's got a limited memory is a better way to put it. When you think about the size of the internet, it can only remember a small portion of it. So we have to bear that in mind, and it likes fresh and new stuff. So keep your content fresh, okay? The third thing I suggest you do. So that's AI discovery. Number 2 is site SEO. This is the foundation, I think, that still pays in many ways. Like I said, you can call it technical SEO if you wanted to. This is the on-page stuff. It's the classic stuff most of us think about. Like I said, title tags, meta descriptions, image, alt text, schema, which we've mentioned, core web vitals, sitemap hygiene. It's basically all the sort of straightforward, basic plumbing that quietly determines whether Google can actually understand what your website is about and rank it. And this is the work that made it possible for my beauty business to switch off paid ads and not die, and instantly generate cash. It's the foundational stuff. It's the stuff I guess we don't really talk about too much anymore, but we all sort of know it probably needs doing, and it's probably the stuff that most of us are familiar with. It's a bit like mowing the grass for e-commerce, isn't it, in many ways? So what can you do this week? I'm not going to dive too much into this because there are plenty of episodes which talk about SEO on the show. But I would suggest that as an exercise, you go and pick your top 10 product pages, the ones doing the most lifting, generating the most revenue, and audit each page for 4 things. Okay, so these are my 4 sub-points. Number 1, make sure there's a title tag on the page that's 50 to 60 characters long. That's the formula that I use. Okay. And then the actual structure formula is keyword plus differentiator plus brand. Okay. So that's how you write those titles. Check that out. So do that. And number 2, have you got a meta description actually present? Is that description written for humans and not just robots? That's It's such an important thing, right? Number 3, look at the schema and look at the code, right? For example, there's an element called OG:type. Now, OG, it just stands for Open Graph, :type. So Open Graph, we're just telling it the type of the site. The default setting for that on most web platforms is to say OG:type is website. I would suggest on your product pages, you change it to product. Okay. Change it to product, not just have it at website. Okay. Like I say, OG just stands for Open Graph. Type tells what it is, and social platforms especially, and AI are looking at this particular tag. And like I say, most platforms default it to website, because that's just the way they've always done it. It's a small detail, but actually it can make a bit of a sizable difference to how everything reads your pages. So definitely worth doing. It just helps AI understand context. And as we know, AI needs context. So the 4th thing that you should look at is image alt text, which describes what the image is actually showing, not just the file name of your photograph, but it actually talks about what is going on. It is a basic accessibility practice that we've been rabbiting on about for years. And if you're not doing it, just reach out your right hand and slap yourself across the face. It's just an important thing to do, not just for SEO, but also because of accessibility and helping people understand your site that maybe wouldn't be able to otherwise understand it. So go check those 4 things on your top 10 product pages. That alone is going to help you move the needle. Okay. So that's area number 2, SEO. Area number 3 is, like I say, another form of SEO, but I do like to separate it out, and that is blog and content. Now, for me, this is the trust layer, and this is important, right? I really do think this is important. I actually find this one not just important, I actually find it quite interesting, because I don't know about you, maybe you're like me, right? We treat our blog a little bit like a chore, don't we? A little bit like a chore that we should probably do at some point, just not right now. And so we just want to get it done. We just want to get it out of the way. Blogs have always been a good thing for in fact, I can't think of an e-commerce website where blogs don't really make sense to have. Maybe there is one, and I don't know, but I don't think there is. But the thing with blogs that has changed more recently, like I say, is that AI discovery quotes now long-form content. That's where it gets a lot of its information from. So your blog isn't just for the humans on your site anymore. It is the trust layer, like I say, that AI uses to decide what your brand actually knows. So now blogs are doing double duty, which is a beautiful thing. If I can be actually bothered to write them. And the data actually backs this up as well. Brands that consistently blog see something like a 13 times more positive return on investment than sporadic publishers. I mean, that's quite hard hitting, isn't it? 13 times more. I mean, guilty as charged, Your Honor. Hands up if you're like me, bit of a sporadic blogger, bit of a sporadic content guy. But we know the golden rule has stayed the same. Consistency always wins. So if you're going to do blogging, just be consistent, right? And of course, if it fills you with utter dread, you can help yourself by creating a really good strategy with your friend AI. Now, I'm not just talking about just having AI write, AI slop for your website. That's not what I'm saying. That's not going to help you. And if that's what you're doing, take your other hand and slap yourself around the face, right? Because we should not be doing that. But AI can actually be a really good co-pilot for creating really good, proper content for your site that's going to help you. So I think your concrete action this week around this, and I love this one because it's practical, and I do like practical, just go to your customer service team. Ask them, what are the top 3 questions that get asked every single week? Write them down, and then write one proper 1,200 word answer, at least 1,200 words to each of those questions over the next month. You can cite sources, you can add FAQ page schema, you can link from product pages to the article. If you do 3 articles a month, that's going to be 12 a quarter, 50 a year. That's a content engine that I think actually does genuinely compound. And every single one of those articles becomes a piece of content that AI can cite when your customer asks AI the exact same question, because that is what they will end up doing. So I think this is just a really practical, cool thing. Just doing something like that, really, really straightforward. So number 4, YouTube, the discovery engine that most e-commerce businesses are ignoring. Paid ads actually on YouTube, I think at the moment, are quite interesting, but that's for another episode, maybe. We're not talking about paid, we're talking about organic. Now, hopefully we've got Brett Curry actually coming on to the podcast again soon. And maybe we'll talk about this with Brett. He's an absolute legend in that area. And I did see his name in my calendar, I think in the next few weeks, which I'm really, really grateful for. He's such a legend, Brett, and I'm really looking forward to the conversation. Anyway, YouTube is one area that most e-commerce founders are leaving on the table. I think it's fair to say that actually. YouTube is the second biggest search engine on planet Earth. It's bigger than Bing, bigger than basically everything except for Google itself. And the data on this is genuinely wild. Last year, viewers watched more than 35 billion hours of shopping-related content on YouTube. 35 billion hours. Which is, what's even more nuts is that's a 250% increase year on year. 250% increase. I mean, that's an insane statistic. And this is something that actually just fascinates me. I know I say that a lot, but it does fascinate me. But here's what I do, right? I know this from my own habits. Whenever I buy something and I don't really fully understand, what that product is like, and it's not a repeat purchase, well, the first place I go to is YouTube. I type in the product name and I watch videos about that product. And about 61% of the so-called younger generation, the 14 to 25-year-olds, say that YouTube introduced them to brands they hadn't heard of. 60% of our younger generation are finding out about brands because of YouTube. And that is a massive deal. YouTube has got some really big numbers associated with it. So we've got some more information about YouTube on the e-commerce podcast. Like I said, we've hopefully got Brett Curry coming in as well. There are some past episodes about it. I'm really excited to have Brett coming on. I really am. And so, like I say, make sure you stay connected for that, because I do think YouTube is a really big opportunity. And the real action, my suggestion here for you, is simply to do one product demonstration video this month. As simple as that. You can record it on your iPhone. It doesn't need to be anything complicated. Put the keyword in the title, add a real description, at least 3 paragraphs, not 3 words, right? Use chapters in the use chapters and timestamps in the description. Do cards linking through to the product page on the video, and that's it, right? You do that 12 times this year and you start to build a YouTube channel that quietly works for you in the background. And if you want to know how much YouTube can move products, if I think about the purchases I made, 90% of them I'm convinced I've researched on YouTube recently before I bought the product. I don't know about your habits, that's maybe just mine. And this includes everything from podcast studio equipment. And actually, not this podcast studio that I'm filming at the moment. We're building this year 2 new YouTube studios for our companies, okay? One in our warehouse in Liverpool and one in Nottingham. And we've invested quite massively in this area. And already we've noticed some pretty big changes, if I'm honest with you, in one of our ecom video businesses because of YouTube and because of podcasting. It's mind-bending, actually, some of the stuff that's happened. Now, I appreciate not everyone's in the same position that I'm in to be able to build 2 studios, but setting some space to record videos, even just on your phone, I think is a good thing. It's really important. We're investing heavily in it, like I say. And for me, it's not just the studio equipment. I've looked at things like camping gear. Been camping recently. We've been moving house. Guess what? Been watching videos on that. All kinds of stuff, really. So do think seriously about YouTube. I can't overestimate it. I can't overstate it enough. Area number 5, social SEO. Search is now happening inside the apps. And this is one of the big discoveries of recent times, I think, where social media is concerned. And again, it's not rocket science. We all knew this was coming, but maybe it is a sort of a mindset shift for anyone over the age of, I don't know, maybe 35, because the data, again, is really clear. Gen Z or Gen Z, you take your pronunciation how you want it, now searches inside Instagram and TikTok before they even touch Google. 67% search on Instagram, 62% on TikTok, and only 61% on Google. So they're ahead, only just, but they are ahead. And so Google is no longer the default for an entire generation of people who are searching. And if your products are aimed at those people, at that generation, it's obviously really important to be found there. So practically, what can we do? Well, simply look at things like your captions, your hashtags, your bios, the on-screen text that you're using in your reels. These are all now searchable assets. They are, in effect, the meta description of the social network. So your action this week, simple. Just go and audit your Instagram bio or your social media platform of choice. Look at the last 30 posts, look at the captions you've used, and look at the actual words you're using and the phrases your customers type into the search bar. Are they the same? You might want to rethink some of those cute branded phrases you have been using that no one really types into search engines anymore. Treat the caption a bit like a meta description. Treat your bio like a homepage with title tags, and start writing for search inside social as well as for the algorithm. And that would be my top tip there. And finally, we come to digital PR, the authority, compound interest, if you like. This is really fascinating. I should probably find another phrase. This is exceptionally mind-alteringly fun to learn about. I don't know. The trouble with some of these conversations, I think, about organic traffic is they are a bit of a black hole, right? Aren't they? If you spent, like I said, $100 on paid media, that brought you $300 in sales, you go, well, there you go. I've got return on ad spend of 3. It's an easy thing to measure. It's easy to do. It's easy to put more money in and crank that machine handle. And the stuff we're talking about is not straightforward. Trying to measure ROI on organic becomes complicated because if you've been following the show for a while, you'll know I'm a fan of something called the blended ROAS, this whole blended ROAS idea. There's an episode on that. Just go to ecommercepodcast.net, search blended ROAS. You'll find out about it. And I think digital PR, out of all of them, is probably the area that feels a bit more black hole than the rest, if that makes sense. How do you even measure return on ad spend here? It is complicated. It is a slow burn, and it feels like one of those things where you're not really doing anything until suddenly something happens and it's all going great. So digital PR is press mentions, podcast appearances, expert quotes, forum quotes, Reddit presence, founder bios, all the things that build your brand as a sort of trusted entity in the eyes of both humans and AI. Now, that's important. And again, when you look at the data, certainly the data that I've been reading, which is really, it's really interesting. Everything's really interesting today. Maybe I should call this podcast the Really Interesting Podcast. Anyway, when you look at the data, brand search volume is the single strongest predictor of whether AI is going to recommend you. Okay, so it correlates more strongly than backlinks by a factor of about 3-1, which is a little bit nuts, especially if you've been on a backlink building strategy, because that's what we've been told to do for the last few years. So the question isn't how do I rank anymore? I guess it's how many people are actually out there searching for your brand name. Brand recognition is important. And this is where digital PR can be really, really helpful in generating that. If you've been following along closely, you'll notice that our vegetology site, one of our e-commerce websites a few months ago, we launched a new podcast called So That's Why. The So That's Why podcast really ties in well with our audience, and Jen specifically, she's the head of marketing at our company, has done a phenomenal job with that podcast. I'm involved in it. I pretty much just turn up and I just look like I know what I'm doing, or at least try and look like I know what I'm doing in front of the camera. But Jen has definitely done the whole thing, a phenomenal job with that. And the impact of it, I think, is very measurable in some respects. Certainly right now in our email marketing, it's quite fascinating when we send out emails about that podcast and what happens to sales. Now, I'm not saying you should go out and start a podcast, but it does help with brand recognition, and these things do make a difference. So we're doing podcast appearances, okay? And again, that ties into YouTube, which also ties into AI discovery, which also ties into content. These things aren't mutually exclusive. They're all connected. Hopefully you've seen that. But yeah, what do you do? Okay, so this week, add your person schema to your about page on your website. This is important. Add your founder bio. Add a photo, a LinkedIn URL if you can. Go and find podcasts, at least one podcast in your niche. Contact the host of that podcast and ask if you can be a guest on the show, and go and deliver great value, okay? Don't sell your stuff. Just go and deliver great value, right? Genuinely helpful replies on Reddit or on Facebook groups that actively work in your category. Don't sell, just be useful. Just be helpful. That's the playbook these days. Now, Reddit is in and out of favor with AI, it seems. Some weeks you should do stuff on Reddit. Some weeks it doesn't really care. But remember, we're not doing this just for tactics to be discovered. But if you go out there trying to be helpful to a community, AI and the community seem to really like that. So that's it. The 6 fronts: AI discovery, site SEO, blog and content, YouTube, social SEO, and digital PR. These are the 6 areas you really need to look at. At least that's my experience. And if we do those 6 areas, we start to master organic traffic, which is going to be one of those key things for longevity in e-commerce. Now, granted, there is a lot there. This is probably the longest episode I've recorded for a long time. There's some technical phraseology. There's a lot of things to make you go, Matt, what on earth, dude? But we wanted to get all of this into an episode, a single episode where all of the content was there. Because why would we not, right? We definitely want to be helpful, and hopefully this is helpful. There's a lot of content here. But like I said, we're going to put all of this into a freebie, which is a free printable PDF. that is essentially an audit kit across these 6 areas. It's going to include all the checklists for each of the 6 areas I've talked about. There's, I think, 18 AI prompts in there that you can paste straight into Claude or ChatGPT. 1 to audit, 1 to fix, 1 to verify. There's also a scoring radar so you can see at a glance where you're strong and where you're weak. And there's some 20-minute quick wins for each of the 6 areas as well. So if you've only got a small slice of time, have a look at that. It's going to have a glossary in the back as well for all the technical terms that we have been throwing out, if you need to understand those a little bit more. So it's a pretty good freebie, if I'm honest with you. A lot of thought has gone into this one. And if you do nothing else from this episode, do go grab that. Like I say, just go to ecommercepodcast.net, click on the resources link, and you will find it there. You can click the link in the show notes or description below. It's just, I think you'll find it really, really helpful. Just click the links below, or go to the website, like I say, ecommercepodcast.net. Actually, I can't remember I'm just thinking now, I can't remember the name of the audit. It will be obvious on there which one you should download. Really sorry, I don't know why I didn't know the name. Anyway, that's what we call bad planning, isn't it, on my part? But it is entirely yours, and it is for free, and it will walk you, like I say, through everything that we've talked about and give you the ability to check your own company using some of the guides and prompts and so forth. Now, for those of you who have heard me at the top of the episode talk about how this show was sponsored by Sam, well, let me bring it round to that as we close out the show. Now, the reason why I am talking about SAM, like, what is SAM? Well, let me explain what it is. So SAM is something I am super excited about, super proud of with what we've got here. AI has obviously become a big deal in e-commerce, and trying to understand how AI impacts your e-commerce business is a pretty big deal. A lot of people I've been speaking to, certainly people in our own company as well, have not spent weeks and months in front of AI understanding it and how to get the best out of it. So they feel either a little bit left behind or don't really know what's going on. It's one of the reasons why we put the prompts in the freebies to try and help you, right? But we also wanted to create a system that we could use company-wide that took the power of Claude and brought into Claude our frameworks and our understanding of the topic of e-commerce, right? It's like we supercharge Claude into understanding e-commerce. And so we merged Claude and that knowledge together. And the third thing I wanted to do was to give it specific context about our own businesses. Because we understood if we could do that, we could do some really interesting things, right? And hence SAM was born. So SAM simply stands for Slingshot AI Mentor. And SAM is something that we've built for our own companies, for our own businesses. That's where it's come from. And the good news is we are now making this available to the public. After some requests from a bunch of people, we are making this available to the public. The only thing is, you get everything in some respects, but what you don't get is the context about my business. So I'm sorry if you're one of my competitors. That's not how this is going to work, but you will get the layer, the e-commerce layer. SAM is that e-commerce layer, and you're going to have to feed into it your own business context. We're going to show you how to do that. It's really straightforward to do it. And the best way to describe SAM is to use the words, I think, of one of our users. How did they put it? Because I thought they put it better than I did. They said SAM is Claude, but with a very specific focus on e-commerce. Like I say, it's the layer that sits on top of Claude. And it's been trained intently on those things, which has been great. And the same person actually told me the other day, they were doing some research for new product ideas. And they put some questions into Claude, got back some answers. They put the same questions into SAM and I think got back much clearer and much more decent answers, much better, much more focused, much more ecom specific. I think that's what they said, something like that. And so that's what SAM is. SAM is the e-commerce specialist that lives inside Claude. And the cool thing is, if you add, like I say, the context of your business as well, you get these three things together. You get Claude and all the power that Claude has, this understanding of e-commerce, throw in there the context of your business. All of that working together is pretty incredible. So why am I talking about SAM? Why did SAM sponsor today's show? Thank you, Sam, for sponsoring today's show. How does this all work together? Well, let me tell you, because maybe if you're like me and you're using AI, or if you're wanting to get better maybe at using AI for your business and not sure where to start, SAM is a great place. And the cool thing is today's audit kit, the freebie, that's a slice, a little sliver of what you can do with SAM. So SAM, what we do is we create these skills that you can use inside SAM. And one of those skills, there's too many S's going on, is we called Scout, because we needed something else with an S. Basically, Scout is like this audit, but on speed, right? And it lives inside SAM. And what it does is it explains to SAM what to do, how to do it. That's what a skill basically does. And so with the audit kit, I can have SAM do all the analysis for me. It works through this whole thing, all 6 fronts automatically. It goes to my website, it checks the pages on my website, and it hands me back a playbook of really specific changes that we need to make on the website with the reasons behind each one. And the cool thing is, because I appreciate not everyone's got the same technical level of understanding, if there's something you don't understand, it just feels a bit over your head maybe, we just ask Sam. Sam, explain that to me. And Sam will tell you what it recommended, why it recommended it, and you can go as deep as you want to go. And it's all tailored to your specific business. It is, in effect, the agency you don't have. And I think it is flipping brilliant. I really do. I appreciate I'm maybe slightly biased, but it's unbelievable the results we've been getting. We're using it in the office. The thing is growing, it's expanding. It does work off, like I say, the foundation of Claude. So in some respects, there's no ongoing subscription costs. If you already got Claude, you can just keep using that, because you can run these audits as many times as you like. It's just going to use your tokens. So it depends on the platform that you're on. So there's no ongoing subscriptions. But full disclosure, there is obviously a cost to SAM, being totally real and straight with you, because it's just, like how we want to do it here on EP. There is a membership fee to join, which is currently $2,000, which I think is about £1,600, something like that, on the site. And you can join SAM. And when you join, there's an onboarding course that you do, which really gets you up to scratch with it. I am personally doing all the onboarding calls with everyone that signs up, which is why we're running it on a wait list right now. So if you are interested in SAM, it's not that the doors are closed when you go to the website. They are open. I'm trying to open them as fast as I can, sit down with each new member personally. And I think that's probably how it should be at this stage, really. I really enjoy doing these onboarding calls because SAM is brilliant and awesome, and I want to make sure people get the best out of it. And so, yeah, because you're listening to the podcast, and if you've made it this far, me rabbiting on the longest episode of the podcast ever, talking about today's show sponsor, if you join the waitlist by Thursday, the 22nd of May, if memory serves me right, that's the 7 days after this podcast goes out. I really probably should have checked that. You've got about a week. If you join the waitlist during that time, I will send you a discount code for 25% off the membership fee. And with that, you will also get a little bit of extra credit to get the Scout skill working. So this whole SEO audit thing working and doing stuff on your machine as well, which is just really, really cool, because these things are great, but it's just, I find there's so much time you have to put into these things, and you can do them, right? You can do all of this stuff. but the automation just speeds the whole thing up. And so the link will hopefully be in the description. But like I say, you can just head to the website, ecommercepodcast.net, and just look for Slingshot. Click the link. In fact, I think you can even go to ecommercepodcast.net/slingshot if you want to type in the whole URL. And listen, like I say, this is really important. You, as much as I love SAM and think it's great, I appreciate it's not in everyone's budget. You do not need SAM to do what we have talked about today. Everything I've talked about is doable yourself. I make no claims that it is in fact not doable by yourself. The 6 areas, the actions, the audits, all of it. What SAM does, I think, is it shortens the runway. It does a lot of automation. It does a lot of the heavy lifting and a whole bunch of other stuff in the context of your business. But if that's not what you're heading at right now, no worries at all. Take the freebie. Genuinely take it. Is free, the freebie. That's why we call it a freebie. Do the audits, and you'll find that is going to be helpful for you in so many ways. I'm not trying to talk you out of SAM. I am just being straight with you. We never want to get to this place where you have to do stuff after listening to a podcast for however many minutes this has been going on. And then you have to spend an inordinate amount of money to get it done. That's not what we're going to do at all. So let me leave you, finally, in peace with the thing that makes all of this worth doing. Because when we get this right, when a customer finds us through any of these areas organically, that customer, in effect, is a free customer. Their CAC is 0. Now, look, I know before you shoot me down, there are some costs involved. There's time, there's staff. Organic isn't actually free. It just costs differently. But what we didn't have to do is pay Meta to put that customer in front of us. We didn't have to pay Google because, frankly, they've got enough money of ours anyway. They found us because we made ourselves findable. So if we can drop 1 or 2 customers into, the LTV to CAC ratio, some of these free customers, which is one of the most interesting ratios you should be tracking, by the way. If you look at the maths, see what happens if you put in 10 new customers. What happens if you put in 100 new customers over the course of a year? Suddenly you start to see the shape of your business changes. Not because you're necessarily going out and acquiring more customers, but because the average cost, the CAC of those acquiring customers has gone down. And in a paid media world where Facebook CPMs have gone mental and CAC across e-commerce is running about 2.5 times higher than a blended CAC, let me just say that again, a paid media CAC is running at 2.5 times higher than a blended CAC. Well, those shifts in the maths become really important. That's what we found in our beauty business when we turned the ads off. It wasn't that we just found a magic trick. It's just that we'd had the organic foundation quietly compounding for years. And when paid disappeared, that foundation really carried us. And it's really important. So go build your organic foundation now whilst paid media is still working, at least on some level. And build it across all 6 fronts if you can, not just one. Genuinely, have a go at all 6. And maybe when the day paid media does need a radical rethink, it's going to pay you dividends. Okay. Anyway, I think that should probably be about it. In the next episode, I don't normally do this teaser thing, but if you've made it this far, in for a penny, in for a pound, I'm just going to let you know what's coming up. One of the things I really want to get into is about a platform rebuild we're doing, which I appreciate sounds really boring when I just hear it out loud in my own head. But we are moving one of our sites onto a new platform. It's not Shopify. It's not WooCommerce. I'm going to explain everything in that episode. I don't have issues with Shopify or WooCommerce, but we do want to do things differently, especially in the world of AI. And Scout, the skill that we've got in SAM, has really helped us get that platform on a good, solid foundation. That's for sure. So you're not going to want to be missing that. The decisions, why we've made the decisions, the way we've made them, what is actually going on. I mean, geez, it's gonna be fun. Yes, it is. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for sticking with me this long. If you are still with us, hopefully you've got some good stuff out of this episode. All that's left for me to say, go check out the website, ecommercepodcast.net. Look at all the stuff that's going on there. go grab your freebie, grab your resource. But that's it from me. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a phenomenal week wherever you are in the world. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.